So today I want to talk about Tai Chi, Taijiquan. A little bit of a departure from the usual topics, because normally I'm talking about Qigong on this podcast, or in season 1 a lot of Chinese medicine, but mostly been focusing on Qigong so far. But a little bit about Tai Chi. So first of all though, I had some complaints about the podcast, about my language and my demeanor, my general meanness. So in this podcast, in order to counter that and keep people happy, I'm going to be a beacon of love and light. So please feel my universal love or something coming out of my compassionate soul and touching the individual perfect spirits of each of you watching this. Hopefully you feel blessed and loved. Thank you very much. So love, light and laughter before we start. Then I'll be very kind to you while I talk about Tai Chi. So Tai Chi, obviously, I'm not going to go into what it is or anything like that. I'm sure you know what Tai Chi is if you're listening to this. But mostly what I want to focus on is common errors in Tai Chi. So 9 common errors that I think people see in Tai Chi, because that's what you do in podcasts. You break things up into little sound bites and bullet points lists. I'm learning. So 9 common errors in Tai Chi should be nice and catchy. So I'll go through these. But of course you should understand that these are only my opinion. They are my opinion formed from quite a lot of years' experience, but they're still only my opinion. So what I might see as an error, other people might see as correct. And of course, in my opinion, that would mean they are incorrect. But it's individual, like everyone has their own opinions. And that's the beauty of Tai Chi. I mean, it can be expressed, it can be understood in countless different ways. Some ways might be more correct than others, but still everybody, is trying to muddle their way through it. And I think that we should be careful in Tai Chi. We should be careful with absolutes anyway, because I think what happens is your ideas should change as time goes on, and definitely people who've been in the arts for a long time, things will transform. And sometimes I look at people doing things in Tai Chi and I see it and I think, that's not quite right. I don't think that's correct. But I have to remember 2 things. 1, it's only my opinion. And 2, actually that incorrection they're doing is often something that I used to do when I was younger or earlier on in my martial arts development training. So I kind of watch them and I think, well, that's not quite correct in my opinion, but it's probably correct for where they are. Like I think that people go through stages of development. And I hope that 20 years down the line, I look back at what I was doing now and go, oh, that's not quite correct because I'll have moved on and done something else. That's how it should be, like a constant process of transformation, of evolution. The other thing I see as well is that sometimes people are snobby at others, so it's look down on them because they can't get something right. They're like, they're doing that wrong. And you have to remember that it's not their fault, necessarily. I mean, sometimes it is because some people are just stubborn and won't change. But often it's not people's fault because you can only work with the information you have. And until you were given that information, you were normally doing it incorrect as well. And I think that's especially that is the case with Tai Chi, because so much of Tai Chi does not follow logic at all. Taijiquan, people try to understand what Tai Chi is. I say it's a martial art, like a common martial art, like common, I shouldn't say that, but like a standard martial art, like Shaolin or karate or something like that. And they took all of those sensible principles that those styles had, because they were very sensible principles, and they just flipped them around. That's it. They just did the opposite of what they were doing. I mean, it's like every single principle in Tai Chi defies logic once you get to a certain stage. So these are my 9 errors for Tai Chi. And also I should say I'm largely talking about the Yang system, which also kind of means the Wu system as well, because it's a derivative of Yang. I'm primarily talking about that. So some of these principles don't apply to Chen style, because it has a very different way of expressing power to the Yang system. Sometimes people think Chen is more sophisticated. It's not the case. Chen is not more sophisticated than Yang style. They're both very, very intricate, very, very complicated. It depends on how deep you go into them. I think the intricacies in Chen style are a bit more obvious to see because they're quite bodily. Rotations and turning the hips and joints and things like this, the silk reeling. The Yang style depth is harder to see. And because the Yang style depth is harder to see, I think it's often missed, which is an awful shame, but actually if you know how to find it, the Yang style has a lot of depth. With regards to some of the other Sun styles, a little bit of an anomaly because it has a lot of the Jingyi mechanics in it. And then you have the Wudang systems, which don't follow any of the same mechanics as Yang style either, really. They're quite different, quite unique in the way they work. They're more like, actually they're more like external systems. I know that's unpopular for me to say that, especially if you're a Wudang practitioner. But I don't see, but you have to be aware that I don't see external systems as a lesser thing. I just don't. I think they're also very, very intricate and very, very complicated. They just work in a different manner. They work very much on leverage and things like that. And the Wudang systems, in my experience, work more like that. But I don't think that makes them lesser, not at all. They just work differently. So very much I'm talking about the Yang and the Wu style systems particularly. So the first error in my opinion, error number one, pushing into the ground with your feet. That's the first thing that I think is an error in Tai Chi a lot of people do. So what I mean by this is if you wish to move forward, it makes sense that you push your foot into the ground behind you. If you've ever taken a stance and you want to move forward in the external lance, you push into the ground, you move forward. You want to move back, you have to push into the ground forwards, push ahead of you to move back, you know what I mean? So you push into the ground the opposite direction of where you want to go. And it's a logical way to move. It's completely logical. And if you've got a very good root, very good structure, very good stance, nice strong legs, it's a good way to develop power. When you strike, to push into the ground from the back leg and deliver the power from the foot to the hand is a sensible way for an external martial art to deliver power. I totally get it. But Tai Chi does not do this. Tai Chi does not work in this way. And I see this done over and over and over within the Yang style, but as soon as they do it, they're not adhering to one of the key aspects of Tai Chi, which is that the Qi originates, I should say the Qi originates under the ground, or the Jin originates under the ground, depending on who translates that phrase. Qi or the Jin originates under the ground at the feet, or originates at the point of contact with the ground, the feet, travels through your legs, is then directed by the waist, the Yao area, and then reaches the hands. So what they're implying is a line of power that goes from the foot through the center of the body, through the waist and out to the hands. Sounds very logical because external martial arts work like that, right? So if I'm going to practice karate or Shaolin or whatever, it doesn't matter, and I'm going to push into the ground with my back leg, that will turn my waist, that will drive the power out to the hand. It's a logical way of moving. And if I do it in a brush knee press and I push into the ground with my back foot and turn my waist and extend my hand, the power will reach it. But the classics don't say power, they say Qi or Jin. Like I say, depending on the translation, who's translating it, Qi or Jin. And that's not the same. So the Qi, first of all, when I talk about Qi, I don't mean something mystical, because the other way I've seen it translated is the other end of the scale, the very sort of hippie-ish style of Tai Chi, where they think that they draw some magical substance up from around the ground, passes through the presumably kidney channels, I don't know, with an up and out through the sort of pericardium channel or whatever, something like this. And that's not true either. That's not really what Tai Chi is doing. Really, when they want to talk about Qi, they talk about the movement of something on the inside of the body. That's largely what they're talking about in Taiji, in my opinion. So when they sink the Qi, what they're doing is they are releasing the body in such a manner that there is a downwards pressure through the inside of the body that creates a series of changes on the way down to your abdomen or down to the feet, depending on where you're sinking to. And this sinking done correctly, active sinking, as I call it when I teach, causes all of the tissues to stretch out in a slightly circular fashion. That's what happens. It's like you're dropping something into a sheet of elastic, so it stretches. It's very much in line with a lot of the I Ching Jing, sinew-changing classics teachings. It's just Tai Chi has a very specific way of interpreting the I Ching Jing teachings. So when that drop happens and everything stretches, what will happen is after a while there'll be a build-up of pressure at the feet. So this build-up of pressure is not the same as just sinking really low and dropping my mass like skeletally. What it actually means is you conduct your force down through the connective tissues of the body, the elastic, all the bits that aren't bone basically. You drop it through all the elasticated squishy bits down to the floor until all your mass gathers on the floor. Now, you can't do this if you go very low into your stance. So if you drop very low and you make a sort of really long athletic wushu type stance close to the floor, you can't actually do it because your body seems to have one of two choices. It can either drop its structure, its weight through the skeletal system, which will go into hinges and things like that, or you can drop your weight through the soft tissues, and that's more like conducting your weight. And I know that's a little bit of a new age term, but it's kind of what it feels like. It's like when I drop my weight, it doesn't touch my bones. My bones feel light. My body feels like it floats. It's free and it's ethereal, it's light. But the soft tissues are not light at all. The bones are free, but all of the tissues are stretching all the way down to the ground, and that is the Qi, the sinking of the Qi, stretching it all down to the ground. What happens then is at the point of contact with the ground, what I can do is I release the point of contact. And this is really where Sung comes in. So what happens is, when I say this is my foot, right, and I pressurize it down to the ground, everything gets compacted. It's like the bone is like this, and the soft tissues are just pressed around the bone to the ground, to the foot. And when I release the point of contact with the ground, obviously when you relax something, it lengthens, yeah? So if I tighten my fist and then I relax it, it lengthens. It opens, right? Makes more space. Like tension is contraction and relaxation is opening. It's the same with the tissues on the bottom of the foot. So when I relax the point of contact with the ground, there's a lengthening of the tissues here. And what happens is that sets up a chain, like a kinetic chain that travels through the rest of the... This is a foot, by the way. Sorry. So what happens is it sets up a kinetic chain of relaxation that comes up through the body. So it reminded me like a line of dominoes. When I press the domino on one end and it knocks all the line of dominoes down, essentially that's what happens when you release the point of contact with the ground. And as it starts to move through the leg, it will stretch the tissues away from the floor. And as it does this, we call this jin, or I call this jin. So jin to me is mobilization of the inside of the body according to qi, like so according to your process of release. Qi means to sink and then to release. That's essentially what it means. So that's the jin. So to fa jin, to express jin, means for that stretch to come out of you, so that that release power from the ground can come out to the point of contact with someone else through your hands into their arms or whatever. This is what's used in push hands. So it means that you have two opposite things. In the external martial arts, I push my foot into the floor to move forward in the majority of cases. In Taiji, I release the tension with the ground until a releasing stretch comes back up through the body and it travels through the body out to the hands. And this is the jin, the releasing stretch coming up through the leg. Then when it gets to the waist, I can manipulate the waist in such a way that it then directs that force out to the hands in different ways. Now in Taiji, especially in Yang style, they had 37 key postures. That was understood. And lots of the forms are called the 37 form, even though they have way more than 37 postures. But they have 37 key shapes within them. And these key shapes basically are a skeletal frame. That's essentially what they are. That you hang the tissues off, so that when I release the wave from the ground, the jin, the tissue is stretched from the ground, and it stretches off of the frame of the bones in 37, I suppose, key ways to express power. And this becomes how, especially Yang style, moves. The reason people can't find it, often this wave, is only for, well, two main reasons. One is they're still pushing into the ground with the feet, and you can't relax something while you're pressing it into the ground. So you push the foot down, you can't release. The second reason is they haven't done enough sinking in the correct way. So if they sink in the correct way, the tissues will knit together towards the ground, so the whole body will knit together as a unit. So when I release one end of the tissues, it sets off this movement. If you haven't connected the tissues together, it's like standing the dominoes up in a line, but they're too far apart. So I knock one domino over, it doesn't reach the next domino. It's just embarrassing. One goes down, next one doesn't move. But if I connect all my body together, then what happens is they come closer together. So when I push one domino, that line travels through the body. And this is essentially how the power is mobilized in Yang style, especially from the feet to the hands in the early stages. Later it changes. Later it does change. But in the beginning, that's what people should be looking for, is the release of point of contact with the ground. Ultimately, the release of point of contact with the ground is a metaphorical representation for a release of any pressure. So it's the same in push hands. When people touch your arms or touch your body, the point of contact is what is released, is one way of issuing jin, not the only way, but one way of taking that pressure. So when it's released, it sets up a chain reaction through the rest of the body that mobilizes jin. So I'm releasing the point of contact, releasing the point of pressure. In the form, you're doing the same thing, but the point of pressure is the ground, because it's the part of your body that is pressed against the floor. So error number one is people shouldn't push into the ground with their feet in a sort of muscular fashion, very physical fashion. They should release the point of contact with the ground until the counter stretch up from the ground mobilizes the chi, mobilizes the body. In Taiji, they say that which goes down goes up, or that which goes up goes down, or that which is down relies on up, so on and so on. Different ways of wording it. But ultimately, they're talking about two opposing forces moving at the same time. So really, for me in Taiji, it's not the push into the ground, but it's the sinking of the chi. That is the down, the release, until everything goes down and swings and touches the floor. And then when the point of contact is pressurized, I can release that point of contact, and that is the up that mobilizes through the body. It is a lengthening on the inside that mobilizes the jin. So that's the first error. The second one, relaxation is not collapse. This is another big error in Tai Chi, that when people say relax, well, they shouldn't even say relax, they should say song actually, which is not quite the same. Not quite the same meaning. But when they say relax in Tai Chi, often people will collapse. And what will happen is when you teach people, they'll switch off. So they have on, tense, off, relaxed. On, stressful day at the job, off, laying in the bath, relaxing, and nothing in the middle, you know? There's no gray area, there's just on and off. And it's quite funny when you teach people, they're like, relax. No, too relaxed. And they can't find that bit in the middle. Now, it's because they mistake relaxation with collapse. And you see this in lots of people's Tai Chi. Some people are not relaxed. They're up. They hold their structure and they look like they're on stage performing or something like this. And then other people are just slumped and collapse. And doing Tai Chi actually looks like it's aging you. You know, it's like if I keep sinking, then eventually I'll end up in the grave. I think it just speeds up your demise. So I don't think that's very good. You're better off being tense and up. At least it keeps you sort of alert and a bit more physical, you know. But the sinking shouldn't be collapsed because your skeletal system shouldn't go. I mean, this is always key to me when I teach people, is you relax around the skeleton. So the frame of the skeleton is held, but it's not held with tension. It's just kind of held in space. I don't know, with your mind, I don't know, just hold your skeleton there. And then the relaxation or the song is the release of the muscles and the flesh off of the bones so that they stretch. So if you think of your skeletal system like a big frame, your soft tissues, your flesh, your organs, your muscles, everything that's squishy, maybe not your organs, maybe you don't want them to collapse, but everything that's squishy must hang off of the skeletal structure. So it's kind of like hanging wet clothes up on a frame or something. So when I say to relax or release, I do not mean the skeletal structure. I mean the muscles and I mean the flesh. So that when the muscles pull off the flesh, it stretches everything. So this is where they say bones up, flesh down. It's kind of the saying, you know, skeletal system up, yeah, hold it held up, structured, flesh down, sinking. So when you relax, you sink the flesh. Now what happens is the space between the flesh and the bones, all the little stringy fibers, they all start to stretch, yeah, and that's what knits you together. It does other things too, but it certainly knits the body together. Because we're not trying to knit together the joints or the bones, we're trying to knit together all of the elasticated tissues across the body, and this is why we relax the muscles. Now if you collapse, what that essentially means is the bones are going with the muscles. But if I don't collapse, the muscles fall off, but the bones stay where they are, there's a stretch. If I collapse and the bones go with the muscles, then there's nothing stretching because they're both, this is bone, this is muscle, and if I collapse, they go together. If I hold the bone and drop the muscle, then this thing between them stretches. Now you're starting to find the inside of the body and connect it all together. And a lot of people have made this error of collapsing the structure in this way. Like the bones, going back to that, I suppose, the bones should not, stack. Shouldn't stack the bones. It's another thing you hear in Tai Chi. Stack the bones from the ground. Never stack the bones. Float the bones. The opposite, bones up, flesh down. So I don't stack one bone on top of another because again that encourages gravity to take your skeletal system and lead to a form of collapse. What I do is I open the bones, more space in the bones but more sinking of the flesh. So the bones float. It is the flesh and the connective tissues that stretch. If your bones collapse, you will be conducting your mass, your weight, whatever, I don't know, your body power, you'll be conducting it through the bones to the ground. Yeah, you're stacking the bones and the bones are carrying the weight. But if you float the bones and you sink the mass and you sink the flesh, your mass will conduct through the soft tissues to the ground, through the elasticated parts of the body instead of the skeletal system, and that sets up the sinking of the chi that leads to the releasing of the chi and ultimately leads to jin. It's a separation of these two. It's quite amazing. You wouldn't even believe it. There's no logic to it, is it? Like I can conduct my body weight down through my skeleton. Well, that makes sense. But can I conduct my body weight almost like a fluid down through the tissues to the ground? That doesn't really make sense, but you can, and that's how Tai Chi works. And I told you, Tai Chi does not follow logic, not at all. The third one, error 3. Ding, ding. The error people make is they think that age is irrelevant in Tai Chi. Okay, and that is not true. Age plays a major factor in Tai Chi. But I'm not talking push hands competitions or anything like that, because I don't really care about all that kind of stuff. It's not my interest. Age is relevant. What I mean is people think you shouldn't change the form according to your age. You should. Of course you should. It should change according to your age. So if you're in Tai Chi for the short term, maybe not, who cares? Like, just do it. If you're doing it for a few years for a bit of fun, do it. But if you're looking at it as a lifelong thing, you're taking the long game on Tai Chi, yeah, your age is really important. When you're younger, everything should be bigger. The frame should be stretched out, not ridiculously. You don't want to look like those wushu guys in the silky pajamas, because you are too stretched out, and then it's like so big that Tai Chi's principles can't apply, because at that size, no matter how macho you might look with your balls scraping on the floor or something like that while you're doing a stance, your tissues can't sink in the correct fashion. And I've seen people say this and they go, yeah, but look at this really impressive form. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's impressive from an athletic point of view, but it's not correct because you can't sink the flesh. But I'm not sort of bemoaning those really low to the ground forms because out of any kind of sort of jealousy, because I can't go that low, because I can. I'm very, very flexible actually. But I'm bemoaning them because they're just not correct. There's a certain size you can go to, and there's a certain size you go beyond. Actually, you can't really adhere to the principles anymore as much as you might like to. But that being said, younger people should probably go to the limit of that size. That's what they should do, so that they constantly work in the body. The body is very yang, they've got lots of energy, they should stretch that out. And is it borderlining on external arts then? Well, a little bit, yeah. So maybe what we could say is younger people should do, if they're doing an internal art, 50% internal, 50% external, maybe 70% internal, 30% external, I don't know. But I think they should do that, especially in the youth. As you get older, bodies change. We can deny it, but bodies change. Bodies are less flexible, they don't fix as quickly. It's just different, isn't it, when you get older? Like, things change. And the form should shrink. It should become smaller, and maybe the percentage of internal versus external should go up. And certainly as I age, I'm not that old, but I'm middle-aged at the moment, I suppose. And what happens is my form should move. Even though I could mobilize the internal forces before, I still looked after the external a lot because I didn't want to age too quick, and I want to look after my body. I didn't want to be a sort of pathetic. So what I did was I kept the externals, and then gradually as I start to age, the internal and external levels out, and there's a bit more internal. And then in another 20 years, I go way more internal, and by the time I'm 90, if I make it that far, if I survive the COVID and end of the world and microchipping and whatever else is coming, I don't fucking know, doom and gloom times. Hang on, this is a love and light podcast, I apologize. Once I make it further into the age of Aquarius and open all of my chakras, and I reach the age of 90, then everything will be very, very small in the way I move, and everything will be very, very internal, and the mechanics will be very, very small. Now, does that mean that I can't do the internal mechanics now? Well, I could, but actually, I don't think it's good for your health. Should I not do the really small frame, tiny little frame now? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's good for your health. I think to do some is fine, but to do it too early is kind of denying what the body needs age-wise. And the same way, if I think an older person, very elderly, tries to do the large, stretched-out frames, I think that's a mistake as well. Because it's not, the problem is we live in a cult of youth, isn't it? So if you don't do it like young people, you're half-assing it, seems to be the view in our society, and that's a load of fucking bollocks. I was always told when I was younger that younger people train hard and older people train correctly. That's kind of the idea. So what I mean by that is, like, younger people should stretch the body, work the body, open it up, strengthen it. Older people study the effectiveness of the techniques and the efficiency and like refining all the little alignments and all those kind of things, because those are the things that are going to support and nourish the health of the body in older age, rather than tearing it open with low stances. Because I've seen people make both mistakes. I've seen younger people training like they're 90 and then wondering why they're gradually becoming doughy people with no muscular strength and no power in what they're doing, and then their health fails ultimately, and they get sort of sick and weedy looking. And well, there's a reason for that. It's because you're training like an elderly person at the wrong age. And then I've seen older people training really big and strong and low, and they just shred all their joints. They shred all their joints, so it's bad for that person's health too. But if the younger person trains with a bit of oomph in it, then it builds up their power. If the older person trains with a little bit more contraction on the form, on the size of the form, and correct internal principle, their health flourishes too, and both people are healthy and everyone's happy. And I don't see why that's forgotten in Tai Chi, that we should still train according to our age. I've seen, there's some famous masters that came over to the West, and they were old, and you see videos of them elderly, and they're doing it very small, very, very correct, very, very efficient. definitely not incorrect to be that size, because all the power is moving, everything is there, but they're just not hyperextending everything, because obviously they're a bit older and everything's contracting. And then I see 20-year-olds copying that size for the form, and that is so incorrect. It's unbelievable. That person, I guarantee, that old 80-year-old master didn't look like that when they were 20. They're probably technically less correct, I would hope, because there should be some improvement as they age, but they were probably physically a lot bigger with what they're doing because they were training for their age. So don't copy the old people if you're young, don't copy the young people if you're old, and neither is worse than the other. It's just different stages of life. Forget that whole cult of youth crap, especially in Tai Chi. I mean, we should all know that the cult of youth does not apply in Tai Chi. What are we on? 4. The fourth major error is do not make circles with your body. That one sounds odd. Let me explain that one. So lots of people think they have to make the body circular. They round the chest and curve the arms and curve the back. And I don't mean spirals as in movements. If you're silk reeling and things like that, that's a little different. But I mean the shape of the body. So you see people studying Jamzhong and studying ward of left. They're trying to curve their chest, but like they're trying to bend their bones or something. It's not correct. Definitely not. The structure of your body is based on your skeleton, ultimately, like how you place your bones and the shape of the skeleton. And they say in Tai Chi that the body should be like earth, the form should be like earth, which is actually square in cosmology, in Taoist cosmology. Probably named from square because if you look down from a mountain, you can see all the fields. Look like a bit like this carpet, sort of all laid out in squares. If you've ever been to China, and it's actually not very neat squares, but squares everywhere. But the other reason is because Earth represented form and square represented the number 4, which in Taoist cosmology was the equivalent of 3-dimensional because it represented the 4 compass directions. So everything was square about form. So there's a lot of different reasons for that. And they say that the energy moves like heaven. Heaven was considered circular. So what we look at that, let's just simplify it, yeah? So circular representing 1, because there's no corners, 1 meaning the number of heaven and extreme yang. So what that means is the body should be square and the energy should be circular. Yeah. So the body should be square. What I mean by that is angled. Your body works on hinges and angles, and that's how the body should be. Or rather, that's how the skeleton should be. And what I see is people trying to bend the bones in their forearms and things to make these unnatural circles, bending in the chest and curving the back and all of these things. As soon as you make those unnatural shapes, all that happens is you create tensions and shortnesses across the body. And for someone who does push hands, when I touch someone and they've spent all that time trying to curve the body into a circle, you can just touch all those you can grab a person's power and structure through all of the little contractions they've built over their body through this unnatural shape they're trying to make. Take the circle out of your chest, sit up so it's natural. Put an angle in your elbow and don't worry about it, because the skeletal system should be angular. We're not trying to make an unnatural shape, just stand normally. The energy should be circular. What do I mean with that? Do I mean the chi, magical fluid? No. Do I mean auric field like a sphere? No, not unless you're really good. No. What I mean is like the jin, which remember is the mobilization and the shape of the soft tissues, right? Should be circular. So what it means is as the pung arises, okay, the expansion of the body in a certain way, around the bones, the tissues start to make themselves circular. So the round shape comes around the bones. So the bones are the solid bit, and all of the other stuff starts to round itself and actually spiral and wrap around the bones, and that's the jin. So first of all, before we can round anything, we have to sink it so that it stretches and opens up. We have to separate the muscles from the bones. And then after that, we have to mobilize it in a certain way so that the tissues can become circular around the bones, so that when you sink, everything opens in a circular fashion in the body. But the skeleton is natural. If you round the skeleton around the shape of the structure, trying to be as round as you can, like a giant snowball or something while you do in Tai Chi, you can't actually sink the tissues because you're in such an unnatural shape, it can't happen. And this is especially prevalent for Jamzhong people, which is why Jamzhong people are some of the stiffest people you ever meet quite often, unless they've done it well. But if they haven't done it well, they're very, very stiff because of all this unnatural shaping. So we shouldn't try to make circles with the body, with the structure. We allow the tissues to shape themselves around our skeleton. That's where the circle comes in. I'm aware that not a lot of people won't agree with me on that. But as I said at the beginning, the caveat is, it's my opinion, based on my experience. And I did round my body for a long time when I was younger, and it didn't work. I wasn't round enough, I was too skinny. Number 5, The fifth error people think, standing is not needed. This is not true. Standing is needed. So what I mean by that is not being able to stand up. I mean that static postures are not needed. And this is a whole thing in Tai Chi where people say standing won't do anything for you, it's just a waste of time, just do it all in the movements, do it in the form, it's all in the form, it's all in the form. It's not all in the form, it's only in the form if you put the correct principles in the form. And one of the most important things for Tai Chi is obviously learning to sync. Now it's very, very difficult to learn to sync while you're moving. In the correct way. So you have things like the Wusong Shenfa within the White style system and the swings in many other systems. You've got swings that come over the head and swings that come around the side and swings that do that. And a lot of these are about loosening the body and syncing. But I would say that none of them are as effective as standing. Not really. Maybe you can only understand the Wusong Shenfa when you've done a bit of standing. I don't know. Maybe something like that. I'm not sure. But if you look at what all of the past masters have said, like, you know, almost without fail, because there's probably exceptions, isn't there? I haven't carried out a detailed survey. Well, generally the consensus is that someone needs to learn how to stand and has to do standing practice for a long time. So is standing practice useful? Yeah, it's the be-all and end-all, certainly at the beginning for building power in Tai Chi, but only if you know how to stand. So I think what happens is a lot of the time people are shown how to stand, they're just given a posture and told to stand there. Does that work? No, definitely not. Of course it doesn't, because you've not been shown any principles in the standing. I get it. So no, and you go, even though I remember going to Chen village. I went to Chenjiaogou and I got in and I was really keen on learning the Chen village system. And in the end, I ended up changing to the Hunyuan style. But I went to the Chen village and they showed me some standing postures. And it was just like, put your arms like that, put your legs like that. All right, okay. And I understand I was a beginner, you know, a new guy. So why would they show me any detail? So I did it. I stood like that. I was used to standing, so it was okay. But then I met some people who'd been there a lot longer, and I was like, do you have any more details in the standing? No, they didn't have any more, nothing at all. There was nothing. And so they hadn't been advanced in their information. And okay, maybe you could say they're not inner-door students, or maybe they'd been disrespectful and they didn't deserve the teacher. I don't know, I got no idea. But certainly they didn't have any further instruction, even though they'd been there months. And consequently, they weren't getting anything out of the standing. What they were getting was stiffer, which they were mistaking for strength because everything was tightening and they feel stronger. And if you're stiffer, you feel stronger, but you're not stronger, you're stiffer. It's not the same, you're more brittle. So the standing is useless if you don't know how to stand. But if you understand what standing is for, which actually a lot of it at the beginning is pretty much what I've been talking about here. It's about the separation of the bones from the tissues. That's what that's about. And it's learning how to sync effectively so that the separated muscles from the tissue stretch in the right way, so that they connect with the ground, and then that point of pressure ties your elastic tissues together into one unit. I mean, there's other reasons for standing, but at the beginning, that's the prime concern, the separation of bones from muscles. And a lot of people will kind of screw that up because they'll either collapse at bones, which, as I said, is bones and muscles moving together, or they'll be really tight, which you can't then sync the muscles because you're tight and they're contracted. So if people treat standing as like a stamina exercise, gonna stand here until something happens, it won't happen because you're actually tightening everything. So standing is funny because it looks like you're not moving, but remember there's always movement in stillness. No, see, that was almost very profound. Because when you're standing, the movement is actually the study of the release process through the posture. So actually, there's quite certainly for beginners, there's a very dynamic process going on where I'm studying that release and this alignment and letting go of that muscle. And it's not mental stillness. It's not meditation. Later, that is the case, but at the beginning, it's not. It's the study of the process of release to separate the bones from the tissues so they touch the ground. And as soon as I've taken people who've not understood this, because some do, some don't, of course, and that's not, again, that's not what you'd be disparaging. You can't know what you don't know. It's not nobody's fault, is it? But when I've had people who don't know this, I've shown them just how to do it very quickly. Try this. We'll adjust your posture there. Just try releasing there, let go. Can you feel that stretch? Yeah, bingo, good. As soon as I've shown them that, people have accelerated incredibly quick through the standing practice. And then they've understood why standing is absolutely needed for Tai Chi if you wish to develop Jin. If you just want to move your body around, do a form, no need. But if you want to develop the correct kind of energy for Tai Chi, then yes, standing is needed, most definitely. Peng will never arise without standing. Again, there's probably exceptions to the rule, isn't there? But as far as I'm aware, Peng will not arise without standing. should always be careful of those exact rules because there's always outliers, but I don't think outliers, these anomalies, really count as evidence of anything because they're anomalies, right? By the very nature of the term anomaly. What was that? 5. So 6. So people mistake, the common error is people mistake Fa Li for Fa Jin, or the release of Jin is Fa Jin. So as I said, the release process that mobilizes the inside of the body to create the expression of Jin. Fa Jin in Tai Chi, in Yang style and Wu style especially, should be invisible, should be very, very subtle, not able to be seen on the inside. Fa Li, to me, is when people jerk their joints open. And I can't even do it very well because it's not my style. I used to be able to do it when I was younger because I was involved in styles that used a lot of that, sort of bang, popping the body open and stuff, but I don't do it anymore. But it's not Fa Jin. And you see people do this, they do it better than me, I apologize, and shaking it, and the body twangs and shakes because they've seen Chen Xiaowang do it or something, or they've seen some of the Wudang guys do it, and they say, yeah, this twang, this sort of vibration that goes through is the Jin, and you hit people with it. It's not true. Actually, Fa Li is not Fa Jin. All you're doing is shaking open the joints, relaxing the muscles, and tugging the tendons. And people have told me it's more, but it's not. And there's no Jin in it, not really. Okay, step back. There is Jin if you use the overall Chinese meaning for the word, and the external word. Jin means like a power, like an expression of power. So you see people arguing about this on Tai Chi Facebook groups because they say Jin just means power. So that's Jin. That's Jin. A boxer's got Jin. Well, yeah, if you use the literal use of the term. But in Taiji, especially in the Yang system, they're using Jin in a very jargonistic fashion. Like they use Jin to mean something specific. They're not using Jin in the same way that you might use Jin in normal conversation. Or something. They're using it Jin specifically to refer to something in Tai Chi, right? So what they mean by the Jin in Tai Chi, like, is the mobilizing under the action of release. They do not mean the fast jerking of the joints. Definitely not. That's not how it works. And Fa Li, this fast jerking of the joints. Oh my God, this is going to be controversial. I apologize in advance. Please don't hate me. But Fa Li is the weakest thing you'll ever be hit with in your life. Trust me, it's terrible. I've been hit with Fa Li so many times, the shaky twang stuff by great masters, and they've hit me with it. It's not strong at all. I remember going to one master, I won't name them actually, but I went to a master in Southeast Asia who everybody said had this devastating power. So I was like, all right, I go see that. That's interesting, especially as a young idiot. I went to see it. That was what attracted me. So I went to see this person, and I got there, and their students were there, and their students were like, "Wow, it's devastating! Like I was hit by this power, and I coughed up blood." And I was like thinking, "Wow, this is really strong." And someone was like, "I got hit by this power, and I just fell on the floor and couldn't shit for a week." They didn't say that, but you know what I mean. There was all these stories, like these incredible stories from the students, and it was before I met the master, and I'm like, "Wow, this is really incredible." Some of these big guys, you know, and I'm thinking, "Whoa, a lot of power." So I went to train with the master. And I did a little bit of training. I did a day before I sort of thought, maybe now is a polite time to ask to be hit with the sort of devastating Fa Li power. So they agreed, actually. So I was like, okay, cool. So I stood neutrally to take it. Not a stance, not protected. Now, you've got to realize, if you stand neutrally to take Fa Li, or any strike, it's going to hurt more. And this is a cheap trick used in Chinese martial arts. Just to warn you, a martial art teacher will demonstrate their power by giving you a light tap from a small distance away, and it hurts incredibly. Like, it's so damaging, and it hurts. Most of the reason that it hurt was because you were stood still in a very relaxed, neutral position. It's just how the body is set up, and I've seen martial arts teachers do this. Stand here and take a punch. Okay. Obviously, it's going to be devastating while you're stood like this. Now, I'm not saying dodge or move, but even if I just sunk a little and just let my body contract a little bit, all the general defenses of the body kick in. And then when you're hit by the strike, it doesn't hurt that much, not really, because your body is in a different state. You imagine being a boxer, walking into a ring, standing like this and taking a punch. Okay, not even dodging, just taking you see a boxer take a full-on punch to the head, they're all right. They're probably hurting a bit, but they're okay. But if that same boxer took that punch while they were in this position, twiddling their thumbs, it would be a very, very different result, because they are stood passively, they are stood neutrally. The body and the mind are in a different state. And martial arts teachers will use this as a cheap trick, and I've seen it so many times over the years. Look at my power. And they'll hit you while you're... Basically, they may as well be hitting you on the back of the head while you're reading a book or something. Obviously, it's going to hurt. You're not expecting it. So anyway, what I did was I stood neutrally. I gave them the neutral passive position because I wanted this power to penetrate through my body. So they hit me. It was like a bit of a sting. I think they caught my nipple. So it was a little bit like, ooh, don't like that. But not much going on. I'm not a big guy, you know. So I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. Do I politely pretend it hurt? Do I death rattle or something? I don't know. So then they put a mattress, maybe it was like a judo, I don't know, something thick on the wall behind me, because they thought maybe that I would need to hit the mat. But actually, normally when they put springs on the wall, it's a subliminal thing. Because if you have a mattress on the wall and you know it's there, your mind's kind of like pulling back. I showed some students this actually, because I sort of threw one a little bit, and then I put a mat on the wall and then threw them. And do you know what? They flew a lot further. They flew a lot further and they hit the mat. And the reason they did that wasn't because I used more power or because the mat had a magnetic quality, but it's just because subliminally you know there's something there. It's almost like a comfort, like and also you know you're supposed to hit the mat, so you'll fly back. People will not do that if that mat is not there. So often they won't, you know. So there's a very subliminal thing about it. So they put this mattress up to launch me back, and again was walloped, nothing. I politely threw myself back on the mat so as not to lose face. But it was very, very weak. And that is the same experience that I've had from almost everybody who does Fali, and I have been hit by some of the people that they say are really devastating. But if those same people hit me with follow-through power, or a snap like you would in external martial arts, or a normal jab or a hook or an uppercut, some of those people would have had a lot of power. And the Fali twanging stuff is weaker than the punch. And the main reason is because it locks. It locks, and it's because it was never meant as a strike, it was meant as a training aid. So a lot of the southern systems use it because that twanging tugs the tendons to form a stronger plasticity into your body shape. But you're never meant to hit like that. It's the equivalent of having an arrow, pulling back the bow and letting go of the bow and letting the arrow fly out, but the arrow's got a bit of string on it, and just as it's about to hit the target, you pull the string and just pull the arrow back. And that's what Fali is. So you get all these fantasists spending all day shaking their limbs out. Actually, they're just training a very, very weak strike. It's not correct. But it's definitely not what Fa Jin is. The Jin should be mobilized through the soft tissues. I'm aware that everything I just said then was actually quite controversial to a lot of people. Fali has a... Let me backtrack for an apologetic way, because I'm being nice on this podcast. Fali has this jerky movement has a place, like I said, because it pulls and it tugs the body, and it puts like a little tensile strength through, and it builds the plasticity of a shape into your body. So when I bang and I bang and bang and I repeat, it's built into it. But to say I'm sort of using these jerky forces to put the shape in my elbow, doesn't mean I hit like that. It means I hit like that, like with a normal elbow. It means the tissue shape is being built by the Fali, but that's not how I strike. They're not the same thing. Don't mistake a training process, a training principle, for an actual strike. Yeah. And also, if you're going to be hit by a martial arts teacher, if you're going to stand neutrally to take it, just remember that it probably adds about 30%, plucking that number off the top of my head, probably adds about 30% to their power, 40, 50, who knows. It adds a lot of strength just because you're stood neutrally. Drop a little, take a little bit of a stance, or not even a stance for your legs, just sort of put a little bit of contraction in your body, as if you're taking a strike. Guarantee there's a lot less power in that strike. Martial arts teachers know this is a cheap trick. We should always expose cheap tricks. The seventh error is thinking that channels, I've already talked about this in a previous podcast, a couple of episodes ago, so I won't go into it too much. You can find it in episode 4 or 5, I don't know, Alchemical Errors it was called. Thinking that channels like lung meridian, stomach meridian, large intestine meridian, gallbladder meridian, all those kind of things, that exist in acupuncture, exist in Tai Chi on the body, and we use them for Tai Chi. You don't. It's not what the channels are. The channels are the mobilization of the tissues under the Jin. It's not the same. We're not circulating Qi through these little fine lines that move through the body. It's not how it works. That is an accidental overlay of Chinese medicine into Tai Chi. The points are the same. You don't have acupuncture points in the same way. So Shandong is not a little point in the center here. Bai Hui is not a tiny point here. And Lao Gong is not a little point in the center of the palm, or one over if you, depending on which school of thought you go to or whatever. They're referring to whole regions. So they use the points in Tai Chi to refer to things. So Lao Gong, opening Lao Gong means that all the little fibers between the bones in the palm are connected together and stretched. That's what it means. And not stretched like Lao Gong open, Lao Gong closed. What it means is it's stretched until they kind of re-knit together. It's like the stress of the stretching builds them into like a connective mass in the middle, then Lao Gong is open. Yongchuan, bubbling spring, bottom of the foot. It's not a third of the way back like in acupuncture. It's not a little tiny point down here. What it is, it's between all these long bones, the tarsals of the foot, all of the little connective tissues, again, the bits between the bones, because there's flesh in there, isn't there? They're not bones banging together. All the flesh in there, that's Yongchuan, that's bubbling spring. So they're using the name of the point to refer to the bottom of the foot. So when the bones separate, all the tissues stretch out, and then they all knit together into a nice, fleshy, organic, elasticated unit. That means Yongchuan is open. And this is, let's say, Ming Men doesn't mean a little point under the second lumbar vertebra. Ming Men means the entire of your lower back. So when Ming Men open, it means all the tissues in your lumbar region from the base of the back of the rib cage to the top of the pelvis and the sacrum have reshaped in the right way to encapsulate the form that we need for Tai Chi, and that means Ming Men's open. So remember that it's not tiny little points. You're not trying to open Lao Gong or open Ming Men's little point or open it. It's not the case. And you're not moving Qi through these little channels. But as I said, I don't want to go into that too much because you can find a whole podcast on that called Alchemical Errors. Go find that one and he'll explain it in more details. That's the seventh error. Those are the main ones, I think, that I want to look at this, but then there's two others. Number 8. The eighth error, in my opinion, is Tai Chi, thinking Tai Chi is more important than it is. That's the 8th error. And you see this, like, I love Tai Chi. You know, it's like, it's beautiful. It's a pinnacle of Chinese culture and artistic beauty, and it's martial arts mixed with alchemy. That's really cool. And there's a mental exercise, it's transformative. But this, and I've dedicated hours upon hours. I reckon I've probably done more Tai Chi practice than vast majority of people in the Tai Chi world, unless they've been in it for 50 years longer than me or something, you know what I mean? But I've put a lot of time and effort into this. It's been my full-time endeavor for a really, really long time. But it's only Tai Chi. It's what's forgotten, it's only Tai Chi. So what I mean by that with Tai Chi is like, I will treat it with the respect it deserves. I treat it with the beauty it deserves. But I will not have venomous arguments with people over it because it's only Tai Chi. And I think that what happens is you see people, and I see the craziest things. What's that one? You have dirtied the good name of Tai Chi. They say things like, Tai Chi doesn't have a good name. They think it's a flowing exercise for old people, so that's not true. You have dishonored the lineage of Tai Chi. The lineage masters are dead, they don't care. You know, you have, like, all these things, these really serious, like they're living in a sort of short kung fu movie or something like that, and you see Facebook threads where they'll threaten each other, like, you don't know what you're talking about, you're just a loser, how fucking dare you, you don't deserve to live, I'll kill you when I next see you. All these things come up, right, these big venomous arguments on Facebook. They wouldn't happen face to face usually, but all this, and really worked up and stuff like that. I can almost see the blood pressure going up in people. I will say it's mostly men. You very rarely see women. There's a lot of women in the Tai Chi world, isn't there? Like loads. Like my school's 50%. Maybe it's more than 50% women. I don't know. But it's definitely pretty even. You never see women arguing on these forums. I'll tell you why. Because they're fucking sensible. That's why. Because they've got more fucking sense to be on there shouting at people. But you'll see men like arguing like it's life or death over Tai Chi. It's only Tai Chi. It's not the be-all and end-all. So the 8th error, in my opinion, is an over-importance, an over-investment, an over-anger involvement in your Tai Chi. If you don't like what someone else is doing in Tai Chi, that's all right. It doesn't matter. That's fine. I personally don't like certain things I see in Tai Chi. Do you know what? I don't mind. There's certain styles I don't like. I just don't like it. It doesn't do anything for me. I look at it and I think that's incorrect. But you know what I do when I look at people doing it? I think, you know what, at least they're doing some exercise and they're doing something and they have an interest. That's more than a lot of other people, so brilliant. And maybe I'll see something that's completely wrong. Like, in my opinion, it's like, oh, that's not wrong. But if I can see that that person has put 10,000 hours into that thing, I tip my hat to them. Like, even if that's completely wrong, in my opinion, the amount of hours you put into that deserves credit. So what I won't do is go on and go, oh, you fuckwit, you fucking numpty, it's completely wrong, because I recognise that it's only Tai Chi and there's bigger causes in life. There's people starving, there's people suffering. Don't get worked up over Tai Chi, it's ridiculous. The 9th one then buys into that. The other thing I think is wrong with Tai Chi is that I think the the cheekiness of teachers, I think, is wrong with Tai Chi, and I think that that kind of buys into number 8, like it's only Tai Chi. But so what I mean by that is, like, sometimes teachers will treat themselves like will talk about themselves like they're gurus or gods or deities and expect worship from their students or something, and I think that's cheeky. And I think that also sometimes teachers will, especially if they're sort of, they call it the iron rice bowl, don't they? Kind of protecting your bowl, protecting your financial assets, I suppose, will actually sort of compromise their morals very quickly for Tai Chi. So they'll sort of screw someone over or something like that, or whatever, for the and justify it because they're a Tai Chi teacher, screw over their students or dominate their students or take advantage of their students. And I think that is so wrong. That can never happen. You have to remember, if you're a teacher, that when people are coming to you into a school, you only teach Tai Chi. And that's what I mean. It buys back into number 8. You're only teaching Tai Chi. You do not know what those people you're teaching are doing. So if I've got 10 people in front of me, I'm not, I am the Tai Chi master, and you are just specks of dust on the bottom of my shoe until you can do rollback properly. That is not how my mind thinks. My mind thinks, oh, thank fuck these people are coming here to listen to me. That's really nice of them to give up their free time, and it's their day off, and they probably hate their job, and marriage is shit, and their kids hate them, and life's a bitch. So their little free time they have when they could be chilling out and relaxing and watching TV and just forgetting life, they've come to listen to me. So what I am not going to do when I teach them Tai Chi is give them a really hard time. I'm not going to do that. I'll work them, don't get me wrong, but I want them to have fun. And I'm certainly not going to take advantage. I'm not going to become another problematic figure within their life. That is not my aim. And also you have to remember, those people might be doing something more important. I'm teaching Tai Chi. That person might be a brain surgeon saving lives on a regular basis. That person might be a fireman burning kittens? What? Dragging kittens out of burning houses, not burning kittens out of houses. You know what I mean? But they might have these really important jobs where they're saving lives and doing really contributing to society. And what am I doing? Teaching Tai Chi. So am I going to be their guru that is going to sort of take advantage of them? No, definitely not. I'm going to teach them to the best of my ability and respect them and be thankful to them for giving up their free time to come and listen to me. And will I compromise my morals or my ethics because I'm a Tai Chi teacher and I have the right to do so? No, of course not. Definitely not. A strong moral compass and a recognition of the value of the people you're teaching is always vital in Tai Chi. So those are my 9 errors in Tai Chi, in my opinion, that I thought I'd talk about. So just to reiterate them, number 1 is pushing into the ground with your feet. I don't think you should. Number 2 is relaxation does not mean collapse. It's a little different thing. Number 3, age is irrelevant. It's not. Take your age into account while you're doing things. And older is not worse than young. Please, let's get over that in the cult of youth. Number 4, making circles with the skeletal structure or the body is not correct. In my opinion, the circle should take place around the skeletal structure. Number 5, standing is not needed. It is. Those people who have not found that standing is useful haven't been shown how to stand, I would argue. It's quite hard to find a teacher who knows how to, or will show you how to stand, actually. It's quite tricky. Number 6, Fa Li versus Fa Jin. Fa Li is not Fa Jin. The fast jerking joint movements that you see is not Fa Jin. 7, channels, Qi and points. The channels and the points are not really, in Chinese medicine, not the same as Tai Chi. They're a little bit different. Don't get too cosmic with your Tai Chi. The constellations don't have much to do with Tai Chi. Well, or do they? Number 8, placing an over-importance on Tai Chi. It's only Tai Chi. Don't get worked up about it. Don't blow a blood vessel. Do not give yourself a hernia over Tai Chi. It's not worth it. If you're going to give yourself a hernia over anything, do it over something important. Political freedom, injustices, whatever. Find a cause. Get angry over that. Number 9, the cheekiness and gurudom of teachers. We can't do that. Stop doing that. Don't be that. You're not a guru. You're just a Tai Chi teacher. It's only Tai Chi. That being said, have fun with Tai Chi. And then please, if any of those things I said completely fly in the face of what you think Tai Chi is, remember rule 8. Don't get all angry and hateful. It's okay. It doesn't matter. It's only my opinion and my experience. One little voice in a huge sea of voices of people in the Tai Chi world. One opinion in millions of opinions. Take it or leave it as you see fit. This is my personal experience. I'm sure you have your own. 9 errors from your own personal experiences, and so on and so on. And we all have an equal right, and we're all individuals. Let's all love each other. See how nicely I ended that podcast? Try to keep it love, light, and laughter.